Hello, hi, welcome, Sassines, to the vlog, the uploading of the vlog in place of the core channel content because outside life got in the way once again. Time. Hello! Again, as always, I am very and terribly sorry, not only for your sake, but for mine, for not being able to upload episodes of D&D or the VGFP or anything for the past few weeks with zero update from myself or anybody else on TeamSASA. Life got in the way. The truth of the matter is, we work for Oculus. Well, some of us, my brother and I mainly, Enzer, and we just announced two new headsets. Well, one was announced a little while ago, but we just announced the newer headset last week at GDC, and ourselves and our entire team and everybody has been just like heads down, making sure everything was going right. Our entire team put in a massive amount of hours, and so yeah, that extended into our lives as well, and a pretty big personal matter came up in the past few weeks as well. So that explains our absence. Explain your fate. Sorry, that's a quote from Tales of Symphonia. Anyway, a little bit about the two new headsets. One is Oculus Quest. That is our all-in-one VR headset. It's a which means that you don't need a phone, you don't need a computer. If you know about the VR landscape these days, it's like very rare that a headset doesn't need a phone or a computer or any outside form of processing in order to function. This one is 6 degrees of freedom, which means you can go up, down, move all around. You've got two touch controllers, just like our current headset, the Rift. And it works inside and in so many different kinds of environments. You can just throw on the headset, and it's just so magical to get into a virtual reality experience without experiencing like any difficulty or wait time or setup time, which has been true in the past for so many virtual reality headsets. And so this one is $399, coming out later in the year, and that's Oculus Quest. Oculus Rift S. This is our sort of successor upgrade to Oculus Rift. Think, you know how like iPhone does iPhone S and things like that, is like a different version with some upgrades and things like that. That is what Rift S is. It's a huge bump in resolution, which is a good thing. You can read in virtual reality now really easily. Everything is just so super crisp. But and the tracking is just like Oculus Quest, so you no longer need sensors. Put up all around your room, 3 of them, to get, I mean, I can do it with two sensors, it would work just fine. But you no longer need outside sensors, so just like the Quest, I mean, as long as you have a computer for Rift S, it is a, well, let me back up a little bit. Rift S is you need to plug it into a computer. As I said, it's just like Rift. If you didn't know much about Rift, you need to plug it into a computer, and it uses outside sensors in order to see the headset. The new headset does not. Quite wonderful, I might say. Again, it's really cool to just sort of like plug it in, not have to worry about any other cords, and like, are my sensors placed properly? And yeah, it's the form factor is similar to PSVR now, because PSVR, I think everybody agrees, has like an incredibly comfortable form factored headset. Rift, I had no problems with the form factor. I really loved it. But this is just a little bit easier to put on, and it displaces weight a lot better. It's called the Halo, I believe, is the industry term, but I could be wrong about that. Anyway, so yeah, we just announced all those, and I'm going to be at PAX East next week, which I love all of the PAXs. But that's just another excuse, reason why we won't be able to upload D&D for probably another week. So I'll try and keep these vlogs coming. I'll try and think of something to do at PAX East. If you know of something that's at PAX East and you want me to try and check it out, I'll see if I can sort of, I will be working mostly all the time, but I will see if I can sort of throw myself out into the normal universe of PAX East and consume what it is that you want me to consume. Outside of that, I wrote down some slight notes. Yes, for just to brush up on the matters of D&D, I know we have to complete the Sim of Tars with the new players, Omid and Jared, and their two awesome new characters. I believe that's probably got one or two more episodes, but Enzer and Luna just got back from their honeymoon, so we can also start the Orin's Obliterate campaign. We can continue that one as well. However that lines up in terms of everybody's schedules, we'll find out. We could finish the Sim of Tars, or we could sort of intermittently put in the Sim of Tars, or release the Sim of Tars in between Orin's Obliterate episodes. These are massive assumptions that anybody watching this knows what I'm talking about. For some reason, these vlogs get way more views than D&D, what I put my heart and soul into. This is just rambling. And so I highly doubt any of the information that I just said is relevant to much of any of you, but I appreciate you watching. So if there is information you want my rambleness, if you want to see just vomited out of my mouth about random topics, just let me know. I'll see what I can do. I'll see if I can't reveal to you how utterly foolish I am on subjects that you recommend. And lastly, I don't want to make this just an update vlog. My father lent me a book, an older book called Labyrinth. It is a series of short stories by George Borges, and it is he didn't produce it. It's introduced by William Gibson, and I think even put together by William Gibson, who is the author of Neuromancer, which is one of it's an 80s sci-fi book that covers sort of like virtual reality and what he thought it would look like back then, and it's honestly one of my favorite universes and stories and books in general. It's top two for sure. This and The Thousand Suns, not this Neuromancer and The Thousand Suns. So William Gibson, author of Neuromancer. Essentially, he just stumbled across George Luis Borges' writings when he was in his adolescence, and how bizarre they were and otherworldly, and in terms of their concepts, or his concepts, and just his ideas and how he would write them, and it's just utterly bizarre, and it gets you thinking in an entirely different way. I'm only 3 stories in here. 3 stories, like 30 pages in here. And already I've had to stop and just wrap my mind around everything that I experienced. William Gibson spends the first, 12 pages talking about how this book influenced him and made him think differently, and the stories just stuck with him, and also just telling the presumed next reader of this, look, you're in for some crazy crap here. It's twisted and bizarre and weird, and in some of the stories, I'm not even confident anybody can make sense of them. But here they are. Take with them what you will. And then after him, another editor of this book, I think, proceeds to spend a few more pages being like, yeah, what William said, yeah, that's true. Yeah, this is some crazy stuff here. It's super bizarre. And so Luis Borges, I think he's early 1900s is when he started writing, and it's okay. So let's get into it. I'm just going to cover one story, and I'm going to try and see if I can't convey what the hell went on in this story verbally without having read it. And please forgive me if you are super familiar with George Luis Borges and the story I'm about to attempt at retelling, because I am going to butcher it. There's no way that I can accurately convey sort of what goes on in the story, but I'm going to cover the parts that I found most interesting and sort of how I interpreted them. So the first one is called, he's called, hold on, let me find the page really quickly. Or maybe not really quickly. Okay, introduction, been there, done that. All right. Okay, the first one is called, and this is the craziest one so far out of the three stories that I've read. Tlon, Ukbar, Orbis, Tertius. And what how it starts out is really there's this guy. He's a scholar, a professor. Who knows what he is? But he's with his friend, and they're sort of just going through in encyclopedias, I suppose. And his friend sort of look in a conversation. Oh, they're not going through encyclopedias. They're like talking, and they're comparing sort of notes. One friend references based on the situation that they're in, like, oh, this is sort of like that one ruler of that one place where he outlaws mirrors because it effectively doubles the amount of citizens that he has to rule over. And the main guy, whose perspective this all follows, says, that's not in the encyclopedia I read. It's the exact same one. And the guy goes, no, it is. It's right here. And so they compare encyclopedias. One is like 997 pages. The other is 1,001 pages. And they compare the section that the friend is referencing is utterly missing from not only the main guy's encyclopedia, but every other encyclopedia on the planet. And that section describing the ruler and the mirrors is only one specific encyclopedia, all labeled the exact same encyclopedia. And so slowly throughout they get super fascinated by this, and they do a whole bunch of research, and they try and understand what the origin of this is, how it came, how those pages came to be in that encyclopedia, and what it really meant, because it was referencing something that was completely foreign to this world. And they find hints of different artifacts and other pages describing this entire another world that operates by different physics, by different rules, by different social structures. Everything is completely different. And the more they find out, I think that they ultimately find an entire encyclopedia edition, like 1 out of 40 or 100 or however many. It was insane. Just one sliver of probably multiple hundreds of pages describing this other world, and how this world functioned that they found, and they just kept reading about and researching, was that they didn't think about things spatially. They didn't, so like it wasn't like there's something behind me, there's something 4 feet to the left. It was, the way that I interpreted it was almost as though they were experiencing, and they took it as such, a living painting. So everything that you would see, imagine it's just the art on a canvas, and it's constantly progressing. They didn't have nouns for things. They didn't think in terms of future and past, I don't think. So they didn't, and they didn't think spatially about things. So there's no need to have sort of nouns for objects, because you, like when you have a noun for an object, that's so you can go back and reference it. That's so you can sort of in your brain categorize it. And in this case, there's just no need for that, because they're constantly just living in the moment. And so you wouldn't say, like, how do they phrase it? It was like you wouldn't say, oh, there's the moon right there. They would describe it as like pale, I don't know, light on darkness. And it's just utterly fascinating. Like, geometry for this world was comprised of infinite formulas, it seemed like, because imagine walking through a scene, like imagine there's a wall beside you, and the wall of a building beside you, and you're walking, and you're constantly sort of changing in your view. If you were to print it on a piece of paper from 1 second, put it down, and then take a step, and then print another piece of paper, those two the difference in the geometric angles and shapes and ratios and everything are constantly moving. They're constantly shifting. So they had to, again, just like think of things on such an entirely whole nother level in terms of geometry. And that's not even the most interesting part. Like, this guy and his friend and a few other, I'm just going to call them philosophers at this point, in the book started unearthing, again, more hints and like fragments of this other world. But it you find out that this world was created. This one man, this atheist who almost had something against gods, had this idea of like, I rule under no one, and humanity are the gods of this planet, and I'll prove that I can make my own world. And so he took all of the brightest minds, all of the scientists and engineers and philosophers and like the upper echelons of intellect in the world, and he created a secret society where each and every single one of them spent years upon years upon years upon years, I forget how long it was exactly, but creating all of these encyclopedias and effectively building every single thing you could think about. History, language, style, the mathematics, geometry, every single thing you could think about, they fleshed out and built this other world. But it wasn't a world that like, oh, let's go to another planet. It was a world of like, let's, shift the entirety of how we think about things, and how could another world exist in a separate set of physics, really, in a universe ruled by different laws. And slowly, the secret society started releasing more of the. You never really know if it's on purpose, if the secret society did it on purpose, or if they were just found by accident. But I'm sorry, you do know. I'll get to that point. But as soon as these started to be released and the public started to find out, people started eating it up. Companies started making clothing similar to the people of Tlon, the other world, and people started studying the language, and people started studying the style and the mathematics and everything that comprised this other world. Because imagine something like that comes out in these days. Somebody's going to be influenced by it, and they're going to make, a piece of clothing described in the encyclopedia. Somebody's going to research the kind of physics going on in the encyclopedia. And so throughout the years of these editions of encyclopedias being introduced to the world started to actually shift and emanate the Tlon, the world being described in all of these encyclopedias. So at the very end of the book, the atheist had effectively created his world. The atheist had changed the world that we know now and influenced it to such an extent that the entire world was completely different. Our languages that we know now are lost. They slowly just the native language of Tlon and all of the other languages involved started to be adapted, and everything else started to be forgotten. The sciences started to be adapted. Everything else started to be forgotten. Style, everything. This entire planet had shifted into this new world, and that's the kind of writing that this guy does. That was just a short story. That was like maybe 15 pages. Maybe more. No, yeah, probably about 15 pages. And the two stories after that are equally as bizarre and interesting. Not equally, of course, because I covered the first one first. But they both give you a really good idea of, wow, I need to keep reading to just engage in this different way of thinking. Like, what's he gonna write next? What kind of otherworldly concept that I've never thought about before will he imprint into my mind? And I mean, all I'm saying is if you start to see, if you watch our D&D games, if you start to see things get a little bit crazy, you might be able to get hints of my own influence of Tlon. Just kidding, of Borges. And that's where I'll leave you. If you're interested, it's only 250 pages. 250 pages. Looks like this. Introduced by William Gibson. It is Labyrinth by George Louis Borges. All right, that is all I have. If you see me at PAX East next week, hit me up. I'll be at the Oculus booths doing various different things. You might see me on stage doing a few demos. Yeah, come talk to me and let's nerd out. Read, there's enough time to catch up on this. There's enough time. Give me your thoughts. Tell me how you thought about it. Before I go, I forgot to add a preface, really, a warning. Just giving you more information to help you live the best life that you can. Anyway, this is really difficult reading. I forgot to mention it's like I wouldn't brag that I have a particularly high level of reading. Probably particularly not very high, but even so, I think anybody who goes in reading this book, and this was also what William Gibson in the beginning was saying, is like, this is me reading, and this is super fast me reading, like, oh, no, okay, oh, it took me like 10 minutes per page, maybe even more of rereading, turning to another page, cross-referencing, like trying to line up all the pieces of the puzzle. That's why the same person who read the same story could give you a completely different breakdown than what I gave you of Labyrinth. Just be prepared, but it's awesome. Still, highly recommend it. As always, Assassins, thank you for joining me. Sorry for our absence. We will come back stronger than ever, with a vengeance never before seen. And never stop playing video games and role-playing games now. Toodaloo. I'll miss you.